Hi there. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're so glad that you have decided to spend your early evening meeting with us to learn more about the Sustainability and Climate Commission. We'll get started here shortly. But as you come in, if you want to put in the chat your name, your pronouns, if you're comfortable with that, the organization you're from, if you are representing one, and then we'd love to hear from you one thing that's currently bringing you joy. And we'll just take a few minutes and wait for folks to join us. We do realize this is an evening session. Want to give folks time, chance to settle in and join us as they can. Thank you everyone so much for being here tonight. All right, and everyone, thank you for joining as you come in. If you can, if you want to, put your name and pronouns if you're comfortable, organization if you're representing one in the chat so we know who all has joined us tonight. And we'd love to also hear from you one thing that is currently bringing you joy. We're going to give it a few more minutes and let people settle in, probably at home, and give them time to come into the meeting. All right. Hi, Kristen. It's good to see you. That's so exciting about the Give Guide. It's true, and I understand. Is Lloyd Eco Districts in the Give Guide?
We made it in, first time this year.
Excellent. That is to be celebrated. That's so exciting.
Yashar too. We were talking about it last night.
Oh, excellent. Hey, Yashar. And Scott. Hi, Scott. Thanks for joining us. Volunteering with 350 PDX. It's very exciting. And doggos bring us joy for sure. And soup season, Vivian, for certain. Karen, thanks for joining us. So we're a small group so far. We would be getting started about now, and I do want to respect the folks that have shown up in a timely manner, on time. I do completely understand that evening sessions are a little bit difficult, but Vivian, Eli, my colleagues, what do you think about us getting started? Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, well, for those that don't know me, I'm Wing Grabowski, use he, they pronouns. I'm a community engagement coordinator at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. Just want to remind you that the meeting is being recorded tonight. It's also being live streamed on YouTube, where you'll be able to watch it again later if you would like to do so. My colleague Eli is providing technical support. I believe they've dropped a note in the chat. You should feel free to direct message them at any time if you're experiencing difficulties. And at this time, I'd like to pass it over to Vivian to get us started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wing. Thank you, Eli, my wonderful colleagues here at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. And to all of you who are joining us here tonight, whether you are signed in and logged into Zoom, or whether you are joining us on another live stream to be here for this conversation. I see some familiar faces and names. So thanks, friends and friends yet to meet that were here. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so that you can see the presentation. Give me one moment to adjust.
We currently see your notes.
Okay, I have to do a quick flip in our display settings.
Currently, we see your notes in a different view.
Cool. Give me one moment. I believe
And now it looks perfect.
I have finally done it correctly. Technology is always keeping us on our feet. Give me one moment here. Thanks for your grace as I move some things around. Great. Again, welcome everyone. I am Vivian Satterfield. I use she, her pronouns or my name. And it's a pleasure to serve here at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability as the Chief Sustainability Officer. Want to welcome you all to today's, this is actually the second public information session that we are doing today. The first one was at noon. We had some really robust participation for the daytime crowd. So I'm really glad that you all are here with us today for the evening session. I also do want to acknowledge that today is Dia de los Muertos. It's also the first day of November, which is Native American Heritage Month. So I wish you all well amidst both the joys and sorrows in our world today, and welcome you to this virtual space to hear more about something that I'm excited about. And I'll admit it, it brings me a little bit of joy thinking about the future of climate action for the city of Portland here, and this proposal for a new sustainability and climate commission body here at the city. This is what you can anticipate that we'll cover in our time today. I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the history that brought us here and the current timeline for the Sustainability and Climate Commission. Also want to describe some of the key processes that we've been engaging on here internally and externally as well, to help inform what this proposal looks like and what the key considerations and some of the key questions that we grappled with throughout this process to arrive at this incorporating draft. And because even though Portland is really unique in a lot of ways, and we, I think, are most unique in undergoing this change of government to a kind of unique form of government into yet another very unique form of government. But we're not the only people across the country in the United States who really thought about how to engage the community and how to have a better accountability body when it comes to climate and sustainability issues. And so we'll share some of the research that we've done from other places across the country and how we've borrowed some of the best practices that we understand do come from other communities to help inform our proposal. And then I am pleased to be able to share with you some of our Sustainability and Climate Commission's proposals in a culminating understanding of where we've come from after all of that input and research. And then I do believe we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. It sounds like we're going to be a smaller group tonight, so don't want to stretch it out too late. If you have questions I can answer and address here in the space, great tonight. Otherwise, we have a number of virtual tools as well that will further garner your input through this period of further engagement and checking in with the public to see how we gotten this right and what would you like to see differently. So I want you to sort of dream a little dream. You know, imagine if the city had a commission that was really dedicated to sustainability and climate action. Public commentary has really been consistent throughout a lot of different touch points that emphasize the importance of climate action and sustainability stewardship. The recent Charter Commission process, which is actually changing our form of government right now, is a recent example of this. And my role here at the city allows me to be responsive to this desire. So imagine if we had a commission that was made up of community members like you, and that the commission can make climate recommendations to our elected body, which as a result of that Charter Commission change is going to be expanded. And also that this body would create the next city climate action plan beginning in 2025. And this commission would be able to work with and be informed by some of the best practices in research and subject matter expertise, such as the people who currently work, not just here at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, but really from all across different service areas and bureaus within city government. That all that knowledge and all that expertise and energy is really coming together in a space in which this body is putting out its best thinking and best practice, and also having a lot of public debate and a public forum for stronger community input and engagement in order to inform what I think is going to be the most important document in the city, which is going to be our next climate action plan. But, you know, a little bit of history precedes us. So let's hear a little bit more about it. In October of 2010, we held this as a city, the first Planning and Sustainability Commission. It was also known as the PSC. The Planning Commission has always been one of the most important bodies in the city. And it's charged with a fairly large charge, and that's to advise city leadership and council on land use and on planning issues. That's like the underlying DNA of our urban form, like the image behind me here in my Zoom screen, right? This is how we build our environment, but also for how we protect our natural areas, create parks. Zoning really is that underlying DNA. And so as the city and the community alongside one another recognize the need to incorporate climate and sustainability considerations, the PSC was created. As time went on, it really became evident that the scope of responsibility for the PSC had increased substantially and was more than just what one voluntary group of people should be asked to manage. With that consideration, our commissioner in charge currently here at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, Commissioner Carmen Rubio, directed the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability to split the PSC into two distinct governance bodies. One is to continue to focus on that really important charge of planning. And by the way, a lot of the power for the Planning Commission also comes from our state land use laws. So we have to have a planning commission. And then the other to focus on sustainability and climate justice. So again, because it's a requirement in the state of Oregon, we stood up first the new Planning Commission, and that commission held its first meeting of the new commissioners earlier this year. We're already doing great work. You might have been involved in some of the public testimony for the issues that have come before them already this year. But now it's time to focus on the Sustainability and Climate Commission, and that's where you come in. It's also where I come in. I started my role as the Chief Sustainability Officer here in February of this year, and I hit the ground running to help start garnering all the public inputs and some of the best thinking here and to hire staff to stand up this new Sustainability and Climate Commission, because I know how important it is, not just to Portlanders, but also because we have no time to waste. Climate is changing rapidly, and we have our responsibility to address it as quickly as possible with the tools that we have and some of the best science available. So with your help, we are creating a governing body that will elevate the importance of our work to combat the climate crisis and to build resilience and sustainability into our communities. Portland has been doing climate action plans since 1993. We have a well-documented history of being a climate leader. In fact, Portland is the first city in the United States to adopt a plan to cut carbon emissions. As you can see here in this visual representation, we've been doing this since the time of floppy disks and all the way over to our current climate emergency work plan. The last climate action plan was adopted by City Council in 2015. Portland crafted a climate emergency declaration in 2019, and this document, although it was an aspirational statement, it really heightened the level of awareness of the disasters brought about by climate change. Since that time, we've all been experiencing that, and we know that too many in our community are disproportionately impacted by the impacts of climate change. The climate emergency declaration mandated the yearly progress report and became this framework for the current climate emergency work plan. And that's what you see a visual representation of on the very far right. All of these documents are available on the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability's website. And the climate emergency work plan is an implementation plan that would see to the implementation of the aspirations of Portlanders from the climate emergency declaration. And so just as recently as the summer of 2022, City Council adopted the climate emergency work plan as the city's climate action plan. That's a lot of plans, that's a lot of statements. The important thing to know is that we are working hard on addressing our climate emergency. The city's current climate emergency work plan is the city's current climate action plan. And it was approved by City Council in July 2022. What it does is that it outlines from now, from 2022 at the time of adoption through 2025, it prioritizes actions that the city itself can take within our own governance structure, with our own bodies and bureaus to address emissions and processes that really drive down to meet net zero carbon by 2050. That's our goalpost. And this is truly sort of, we call it a down and dirty work plan of the action steps that we need to be taking in order as a city to reach net zero carbon by 2050. So you'll recall, I sort of mentioned that one of the things that the new Sustainability and Climate Commission would do is that it would be charged with setting the new climate action plan for the city starting in 2025. That's why I'm using that 2025 year as a goalpost for the Climate Commission's work to really be driving towards, to say what happens after 2025, because our current climate emergency work plan goes through until that time. We have to do annual progress reports on it. We actually just completed the most recent annual progress report. It's been well documented on both the city website and also reported through the media channels such as the Oregonian. So you can kind of check out the progress that we've made. I'm proud to share that we are on track on the bulk of the climate emergency work plan actions, but there's a lot of work to do. 2025 is just around the corner. So with the new Sustainability and Climate Commission that I am proposing, what it would do is I believe that it would help reset the scope, the expectations, and more importantly, establishes this new authority in the city on climate and sustainability. I believe that it would create accountability for our elected city council members, again, expanded to a 12-member city council, other agencies that the city of Portland interacts with and has to work in concert and partnership with, because there's so many things that really drive emissions, that drive climate change that we need to address, but that the city of Portland itself is not solely responsible for, like transportation. But also this will create an accountability body for the community. There's so many amazing community advocates and organizations that exist that are really concerned about sustainability and climate justice issues. And there isn't currently a body at the city that they can interact with and engage with staff on and have some accountability and have a public forum to be able to talk about issues that are of importance. So again, this commission will also create the city's climate action plan after 2025. I'm pretty excited about that. That gives me a lot of hope. Early in my sort of advocacy career here at the city, I was a part of the equity work group in the 2015 climate action plan. And so I'm proud to, from those early days to now, continue this through line of participating in the city's climate action planning and be a part of our community of engaged folks who really want to see climate action taken seriously. I also want to share with you a little bit of our timeline overview about where we've been and where we're going when it comes to the Sustainability and Climate Commission. So as I mentioned, I hit the ground running when I first started in this role, and shortly thereafter was able to hire staff and begin doing the research. What are other people doing in their communities? What's working? What are models and what are some things that we can borrow to help inform what we're doing here? We started researching the structure, the function, and start proposing what we call the discussion draft proposal for the Sustainability and Climate Commission. From there, we started doing some initial presentations to city staff and city leadership in order just to get a first initial gut check of whether or not we were on the right track and whether or not we had support to propose a Sustainability and Climate Commission. We engaged with different staff from bureaus. There are climate champions all throughout the city, I will assure you, although I'm fortunate enough to be able to work with the amazing team and the dedicated climate team here at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. The reality is that we have climate champions everywhere in the city. They're all working hard in different bureaus. And so we wanted to make sure that we touch base with them as well and ensure that their inputs were reflected in our current proposal. Throughout the summer, we began doing our incorporating drafts based off of their initial feedback. And then we were able to do some workshops that we actually had designed specifically for this process and sort of debut them with city staff. Again, those are the climate champions I'm referring to, the people who are really thinking and also spending a lot of time knowing about what other communities are doing and having them engage with our process to help shape this proposal for the Sustainability and Climate Commission. At that time, I also, in late summer, was able to recruit a number of amazing community leaders and to engage in a workshop series to further engage in those discussions. These are people who are leaders within their community, who do climate action work, who may lead organizations or have a lot of experience in the policymaking space. And so I really brought together a pretty diverse group of folks to help further engage and inform the proposal drafts that we were considering. I'll share more about those folks in a little bit. And then in October, we further incorporated that into an additional draft. And then this is where we are now, November 1st. This is when we really feel confident that we have enough of a scaffolding for a Sustainability and Climate Commission draft that we can begin engaging more broadly with the public. We did have a kickoff event in East Portland over the summer to just announce to people that we were doing something. We then had a number of different workshops and engagement series to really start tinkering with and start figuring out what we wanted our proposal to look like and to start grappling with some of those big key questions. And then now we're ready to launch into this more intentional public engagement. By the end of this presentation, you'll also receive a number of links to various tools that we have developed to help further garner your input into a further incorporation into our proposal. And so we'll make sure that we share out those links so that you can engage with. You don't have to do it tonight. You can let this marinate. We're going to have the links open and the public input opportunities open for a while. Obviously, there's a lot of things to think about when you think about climate action. So I want to make sure we keep that live for you to be able to think about what you would like to see in the city of Portland for climate action and sustainability, and how the SCC can really help benefit your work. If you do happen to work in volunteerism or even professional work in climate sustainability issues. And then from there, we'll be closing out this year with doing further engagement with city leadership. As you may know, again, I've mentioned it, of course, but we're going through a lot of change in our city governance right now. This is all as a result of the vote that voters passed for our city charter reform. And so I just have to be honest that one of the most challenging aspects of developing a new high-level sustainability and climate commission is designing it to a certain percentage of relative completeness, with further input from the community. And then we're going to be dropping it into also a being designed to a certain level of completeness, new form of government. And so I just want you to kind of keep that in mind, because when we get to the Q&A, just know that there are questions that I'm still grappling with. There's things that still have to be figured out. A lot of that has to go in the container of how our new form of government is going to operate. And so that's one of the biggest challenges with doing this work. But I'm pretty excited because the things that I feel very confident and secure in is really about where this commission needs to be, who should be a part of it, and then what sort of areas that they'll have influence over. So while you're thinking about that, let's hear a little bit about what other commissions across the country have done. And so here is a table. I know there's lots of words. The important thing to know is that we're not the only ones thinking about how to do a climate and sustainability commission. In fact, all the way from Sacramento to Honolulu to LA and Chicago, there are communities all across the country who have groups that they've convened of various sizes to help inform decision makers about issues like what we're trying to do here. So we looked to other cities for inspiration. We actually researched 13 other climate advisory bodies. 8 of those advisory bodies are within cities like Portland. 2 of those are at the county level, and 3 of those are at the state level. We were intentional about really looking at the different levels of government in order to not narrow ourselves too much into just thinking about like a city jurisdictional context. As you can also see on the right-hand side of the chart, these different bodies, their membership really widely ranges from as large as 192 members, which I sort of think is like almost like a public assembly body, a very wide-ranging membership, all the way to rather small and contained membership of only 5 people. Sometimes these were volunteers who are being appointed to the commissions. Some of these commissions have these appointed staff liaisons who can't vote on any actions. And some of these advisory bodies are purely advisory committees. So they really range in terms of like their function and how they're assembled. For some of them, they do have a dedicated staff liaison from various staff within the bureaucracy. Over half of them actually do have staff liaisons, and it really varies. Some of them vote, some of them don't vote. Some of these bodies are completely volunteer. Some of these bodies have appointed membership, and sometimes the staff liaison is actually a part of their job descriptions. So I'm sharing all that just to put in your mind that there's really a wide breadth of how these different bodies are thought about. And what that tells me is that they're actually really jurisdictional specific. That for each jurisdiction, they've really thought specifically about what could apply to their current work, to their structure. And that's why we're seeing such a wide range. They also, because sustainability and climate, climate touches everything. Everything is a climate issue. So how do you focus in and start thinking about how you want to narrow down the work that a wide-ranging climate commission should be working on? Well, we learned from looking at these other commissions that they actually do that work by categorizing them into focus areas. The majority actually of these commissions do have focus areas that they try to categorize their work into. So what do we mean by that? It's on the next slide. So I want to call out just 2 different cities because they had honestly just like really good graphics I could just borrow and show you what they mean by focus areas. So I want to show you Denver and I want to show you the city of Sacramento. These 2 cities have called out the different focus areas that they focus the work of their sustainability and climate bodies into. And you can see, just looking at the 2 of them, that there's actually a lot of similarity. For example, Denver has sustainable transportation. Sacramento does call out 2 different types of transportation. 3, I'm sorry. Active transportation, transit and shared mobility, and zero emission vehicles. So there's a number of ways that you see that folks are sort of grappling with the mobility form in the urban environment and how they want to categorize that work. Sacramento wants to break them out into 3. Denver is just kind of putting it all under 1. But of course, the work area is still about our existing buildings, about adaptation and resiliency, around environmental justice. Those are just some examples that we can already see parallels to from our own work and how the city of Portland has been categorizing our work into our climate action plans and our current climate emergency work plans. This, to me, tracks really, really well with how we've been categorizing our work already. And so what do these climate bodies actually do? What kind of actions can they take once they're established? This also, unsurprisingly, wide-ranging. Some advise the city council or mayor. Some advise specific offices and departments. Surprisingly, some even have purview over community, businesses, and nonprofits, and some have a combination. The actions also range from whether it's a general recommendation, input, and reviews, but some can provide specific climate plans. Some actually have advocacy roles that they take, and only a few of them can actually set policies, rules, and programs. So again, it's fairly wide ranging. What this tells me is that because there is no set type of action that these groups can take, again, it tells me that the cities and the context for which these bodies are created and how they do their work really has to be tied to their form of government. So that's why it's so wide ranging. So again, much like our timeline, once we looked to other cities, started digesting and understanding the type of work that they were doing and how the function and form of their climate commissions were, we started to do some public engagement. So we, again, heard a lot of, we started our own engagement. We brought some ideas and some initial proposals back to staff and started to work on things in order to prepare to tell the public more broadly. This is actually a photo from the public kickoff that we had in East Portland. And I want to recognize, we didn't necessarily address everything that is heard. This is still an ongoing iterative process. That's why we're here on November 1st in this information session to further continue this thread of public engagement. And these are some of the continuous feedback loops that we're having in order to take information, digest it a bit, process it, and then put it back out for continuous public engagement. Like I mentioned before, in the context of the city charter review, we heard a lot as the city, heard a lot of feedback and advocacy about the urgency of taking climate action, of putting together a new sustainability body. And again, one of those recommendations was to create a climate oversight commission. So I believe that this proposal is helping responsive to those longstanding threads of advocacy and the call from community and these different public engagement points to have a better form, a better structure for feedback when it comes to climate and sustainability issues. We also hosted, again, I mentioned the open house, and we are launching an online survey. A link to that will be dropped in the chat. It's also hosted on our website at BPS. Today's info session, the one that happened at noon, and also the one that you're here attending today, are also a touch point for public engagement. And again, as I mentioned, we did have some city staff workshops, and I'm most proud of the work that we did with what I call the SCC working group, a group of folks that I selected to help me kind of work through the nitty gritty and to work in a workshop series to really think through the proposal that you're about to hear some more details around here shortly. So I know because we have one of the SCC working group members here, definitely want to brag on them. Thank you, Kristen, for dedicating your time and expertise into this process. These members really engaged further with the discussion draft and were able to work through some key questions. The organizational affiliations here are given just for identification purposes only. It does not mean that they endorse the proposal. It's just want to recognize that you may see these names and faces out in the community, and you should give them a high five. They're incredible folks, and if you're not aware of who they are, these are definitely leaders who care deeply about sustainability and climate issues, and who do a lot of not just dedicated volunteer time, but also spend a lot of their professional pursuits into trying to make Portland a more equitable and sustainable place to live for all of us. So thank you so much. What a heartfelt thanks to you all. I really appreciate the time spent here. I keep mentioning these key questions that we had for the working group. These are kind of the big ones. So I'll just go ahead and call them out and share them with you here now. The working group really focused their efforts around workshopping and addressing different scenarios, like real life scenarios, right? These are leaders in our community. They deal and interact with the city a lot. They interact with the community directly. And so they would address real life scenarios that would address some of these key questions, such as, what power does this body need to have to achieve its charge and goals? Where in this new city government does this body need to be situated? Those two things are directly related. What other agencies outside of the city can SCC influence? For example, Multnomah County Climate Commission, and how would that interaction actually go? And then most importantly, kind of thinking back to the history and the challenges of the Planning and Sustainability Commission, how can this new Sustainability and Climate Commission balance advisory, advocacy, and decision-making when they're a volunteer group coming together and really trying to lead climate action for the city? This is probably what you've all been waiting for. Here, I'll begin to start sharing some of the structural and the proposal overview that I have. So from our internal staff workshops and the Sustainability and Climate Commission Working Group feedback, I'm sharing with you now our incorporating draft proposal for the Sustainability and Climate Commission. I am proposing a 20-member commission. It will be made up of community members. It will include youth commissioners, and it will be supported with city staff liaisons who will dedicate some of their time supporting the work of the Sustainability and Climate Commission. They will also organize their work by focus areas, and we will be intentional about recruiting members in different areas of expertise or knowledge they can come and bring in directly into inform the work of Sustainability and Climate Commission. So just one note here, actually there's a few notes. 20 members. You'll recall that in our research summary, I showed a chart of membership that really was wide varying from 100 plus, almost 200 person member commission all the way to a 5. A 20 member commission is about a middle of the road sort of membership body for that wide ranging membership that we saw from across different communities. I do want to be able to recruit directly from community members. We have so much expertise already in our community, so many people who are ecstatic to talk about climate issues and who really have dedicated so much of their time to it. So I believe that we'll have a lot of success in recruiting members who already have areas of expertise and knowledge. And remember when I talked about all those amazing climate champions in the city? Those folks too have a lot of energy that they want to direct someplace positive. And so by having a city staff liaisons, we can find a way to dedicate some of their time and also channel their expertise into working outside of the bureaucratic silos with one another in this forum, in this space that's being supported by community members to help create, for example, the city's next climate action plan and to solve some of the most urgent issues that we face. So how exactly would the Sustainability and Climate Commission function? Well, I believe that it would align with the city's climate focus areas as outlined in the Climate Action Plan and the Climate Emergency Work Plan. I am also proposing this to be a very high level commission seated at the city manager level commission. By proposing it this way, this is the first, to my knowledge, commission that is being proposed at this level of government. I also would like to propose that the SCC would be able to balance advisory, advocacy, and decision-making in their purview and in their charge. There are some proposals that I'm currently working through to really consider how we categorize policy ideas or concepts that come in here and be able to be clear for the SCC how they can advise, what would they be advocating for, and what they would be making decisions on. This is something that we kind of went through in our working group scenario planning to start playing with and to start really thinking about how this would play out. But more importantly, this would advise with other advisory bodies that exist not just within the city, but also within our region, within the county. As I mentioned, transportation is, for example, one of those topics where the city of Portland is only responsible and manages a really small sliver of an extremely complex network of transportation providers and actors. Some of those, for example, TriMet, our regional transportation agency, has its own governance body. So imagine the Sustainability and Climate Commission hosting a joint meeting to make a joint decision on something that would impact transit riders in the city of Portland. Or maybe there would be some occasions in which it would be most appropriate for the Sustainability and Climate Commission to show up in an advocacy realm, writing a letter, testifying publicly in front of another decision-making body on behalf of Portlanders. And, because I know that this comes out of a lot of advocacy and a desire to see strong accountability and transparency towards climate action outcomes, what does that look like for SCC? I know that we'll have to incorporate a lot of long runways of information and discussion with stakeholders. There are no surprises, that you don't have the occasion of opening up a local blog or a newspaper and saying, whoa, how did that decision come to bear? Also want to make sure that we have publicly accessible meetings with clear communication and two-way communication so that there is consistent community feedback. And so there's also clarity for staff of who is holding them accountable. And most importantly, because we're dealing with issues of such importance like climate action and sustainability, we want to make sure there's follow through and that there's follow up on on the concepts and the work product that's coming out of the Sustainability and Climate Commission. Because we're mapping this back to the City Climate Action Plan and the Climate Emergency Work Plan, I want to propose that we do have focus areas like so many other communities do in their work, like Denver and Sacramento. And so here are some focus areas that I'm currently proposing. This is an area I would love to hear feedback more from the public and what you think the focus areas for the Sustainability and Climate Commission should be. We currently know that a lot of our emissions come in these categories, so I just want to highlight them for you. Energy and renewables, buildings and homes, urban form and transportation, consumption, solid waste, and recycling, food and agriculture, urban forest, natural systems, and carbon sequestration, climate change preparation and adaptation, environmental justice and equity, and youth. Now, I want to pause here for a moment because I want to be really intentional about how to incorporate meaningful youth participation on the commission. So I've been engaging and working directly with the Youth Adult Partnership model that Multnomah Youth Commission, which is the official youth policy body of the City of Portland and Multnomah County, advises. I'm also working with educational institutions such as Portland State University and Portland Community College for further support in this realm and to really think about how we can readily support young people to actively and meaningfully participate in a bureaucratic but really important body like the Sustainability and Climate Commission. And so as I'm working through some of those support systems for youth participation, I am eager to be able to share more as some of those conversations come to fruition. But just know that I'm engaging with some of the best thinkers, best experts, and really want to make sure that I get this youth component right, considering we have so much amazing youth advocacy and a strong youth voice for climate action in our community. After all, we are doing this work in stewardship for all of the future generations, so we can include their voice here now. So those who may have been there at our kickoff event in East Portland for this process, you might find this visual of a tree fairly familiar because that's the framework that we are using to help prompt your feedback on Sustainability and Climate Commission. Please share your input via the online tool, and we'll put a link to that in the chat, which we'll have open during the entire month of November. And so we're also going to go ahead and share the SCC team email in the chat. And I couldn't be more earnest about this. We honestly would love to hear from you. We've been doing this work and engaging with so many people already. And so there's a lot of good minds and big hearts working on the Sustainability and Climate Commission proposal. And so I really want to encourage you that as this information is sort of marinating with you and sitting with you, and as you're thinking about how this body could be an additional add, a value add for climate action in the city and how this might impact you, whether it's in your professional work or your volunteer pursuits, we really do want to hear from you. So please, please send us an email, engage with us on the website. We have some tools. And if there's a way that you'd like to be engaged with that we haven't thought about already, we'd also love to hear that suggestion then. I think we'll have plenty of time to be able to answer maybe a few questions, But if you want to get a hold of me, here's my information. Here's a great way to find me. My email and my city phone is right here. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that we can have a discussion if you'd like. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Vivian. I love that presentation. I've seen it a few times, and it's actually really inspiring to see this work unfold. We're a smaller group. I'm here to do a little low-key facilitation. If folks have questions or comments, we invite them in now. If you want to raise your hand, if you want to drop questions or comments in the chat, or if you just want to come off mute and say, hey. And if you're not comfortable doing so, or if something comes to you later, of course, like Vivian said, and like Eli dropped in the chat, you can email us at the SCC info email address. Hi, Damon. It's nice to see your face.
Good to see your face. I just wanted to say bravo and congratulations on getting this far with the Sustainability and Climate Commission. And I appreciate the fact that you're doing these info sessions. It's very exciting. Thanks again for engaging the Oregon chapter of the Sierra Club as one of the folks to provide some insights and advice as we were getting to this point.
Thank you so much, Damon. Damon participated and shared so much of their expertise and time as a part of the SCC working group. So again, I can't thank you enough for agreeing and saying yes, and for also tracking the Sustainability and Climate Commission as we get to this point. I look forward to continue engaging with you at every iteration of the drafts that we have, and then when we're finally in front of City Council. So thanks so much.
Hey, I have a question, if that's okay. First of all, thank you, Vivian, for presenting this, and to your team for some amazing work here. I'm curious, in terms of conversations so far and feedback you're receiving, and just as you assess the different categories, has heat islands in any way emerge as like its own category? And the reason I go there is because of the 2021 heat dome, and those are our first climate thefts according to who you talk to. And to me, it's kind of taking on an emergency of its own. Some cities have heat managers now, in the States and across the world. And I'm just curious, in your view, where that fits in. I'm guessing EJ, but is there a scenario where that could be its own focus, particularly through the lens of shade equity?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question, Yashar. I'm so glad that you could participate and join this conversation. And thanks for all the work that you're doing to ensure greater shade equity in our communities. So the question around heat islands, and yes, a lot of cities actually do have, for example, a chief heat officer. I know that there's one, I think it's in the city of Phoenix. I was actually just talking with someone in Miami who also had one. These are places that you can imagine, because of where they're geographically situated, that you would have someone who's dedicated to just talking about heat. And yet we know here in the Pacific Northwest how devastating and how impactful the heat dome was, and how we want to ensure that we need to do everything we can to make sure that we never lose as many lives as we did during that catastrophic heat event. And so I really welcome your additional input into the process that we already have about how we're categorizing the work and the focus areas. Is there something that you think we should be calling heat islands, and what components should be a part of that? Or by looking at the sort of focus area drafts we have, is there a way to incorporate that sort of heat island idea that we see a lot, especially in East Portland and other geographic neighborhoods within the city of Portland? Does that belong, or can it be a linkage to in other focus areas within our current proposal? I really welcome you to offer your input into that. Again, these are our proposals. Nothing is set in stone yet. So I look forward to hearing what you think from your area of expertise.
Thanks for that feedback.
Well, I will say we are actually approaching the hour. So maybe we can just end a little early. And yeah, just a reminder, check out the links for more info. We really would love your input. We have the survey online. It is a really interesting way to look at standing up a program like this. What are the foundations, the roots? What give the program strengths, and what sort of outcomes we're hoping for? You know, dream big with this. We'd love to hear it. So please visit us online, and we will make sure your voice is heard there. And again, please feel free to reach out to us at any time if you have questions or inspiration ideas. Vivian, Eli, thank you so much for being amazing colleagues in this process today and tonight. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight.
Thanks, everyone. Don't eat too much jalapeno.